All right. Oh, sorry for that. Getting started just a couple minutes behind. Dude, my issue is that I run into with doing this space. I get both phones going at once, and I never use the old phone for anything else but doing this space, basically. Because like Twitter's terrible and it doesn't allow you to do spaces with phone computer, which I absolutely don't understand how they can't incorporate that in. It seems like really easy functionality to add. But anyway, they won't let you do it. So I always forget. My other phone's always dead going into that, and that's what leads to like the 3 or 4 minute delays that we have seen the past couple of weeks. But we're getting going right now. If you want to speak, go ahead, come on up. Cube, good to have you back up here, man. Excited for another week and another edition of the Wonky Weekly Alpha. I can't even talk today, man.
Well, it's a bit of a tongue twister, but crazy to think that, yeah, we're 24 episodes in. Going to have to fact check you, but the number sounds right, which means we've basically been doing this for 6 months now on a regular basis. So happy to have everybody in here, close out another week strong and rocking and rolling. And yes, I am indeed on the road today.
Bro, love it, love it, love it. Hey, I tell me a little bit more about what you've got going on with the Room 110 thing, man. I saw y'all had the Crypto Tech Women, which we had on here, co-hosted with Gigi. I think it was back toward like April or so, maybe May, that we had Gigi on here, but loved her, loved everything with that. And yeah, man, pretty cool what you guys have been doing. I really enjoyed jumping on with you guys, at least, even though I missed having you there that day.
No, so you're gonna have to do it again, just so I can, grill you on the Room 110 space. But yeah, man, appreciate you doing that. I guess quick little overview, just kind of group of a few of us who obviously met in Wonky Stonks. The group's getting bigger and bigger, and we just, the NFT space. Everybody says it's still so early, and there are so many talented people that exist within this ecosystem, and we kind of came together as a spot to kind of share alpha, bring people up, artists and creators alike, talk about their projects, and just kind of look at it as a network thing in building bridges. Um, you know, the NFT marketplace, I guess you could say, gets a lot of bad publicity for all the rugs and whatnot that exist out there and money grabs. But there are truly so many genuine people that I have met in this space, starting all from Wonkies. I mean, that's my Genesis story. And then just from other communities. And I feel like we need to do a better job, I guess, industry wide about showcasing some of these good people. So, that's one of the ideas. We typically have a space, once a week. Sometimes do some impromptu ones, but, ETH, Solana. Hell, we've done a Teza space that Wick was heavily involved in. So a little bit of everything. But yeah, man, we're going to have to get you back on there. And I can't believe your hidden talent is your mutant feet. That's remarkable.
Yeah. It's got to be like there was a back in the day, and I never said this on the space whenever they were interviewing me. There was this, you know, long line to be able to get into this haunted house type of thing. And, I was back in high school right after I figured it out, and people, they were doing something where to entertain the people that were in line, they had a big stage over the line, and they brought people up for certain things. And one of the things they were like, okay, if you think you've got like, superhuman trick or whatever, come up on stage, we'll do a contest. And whoever wins, their group gets to cut to the front. And, I was there with my cross country team at the time. It was fall, cross country season, whatever. And we, because of my trick, our team ended up getting to skip the line, probably saved us a solid half hour. And we went up there, and I don't get how it's gut wrenching whenever people see it, but apparently it is. To me, whenever I do it, it's like, it's just like my feet are backwards. But apparently that's not like a very normal thing.
The double jointedness, I'm gonna be honest, it gives me the heebie-jeebies thinking about it. It like all those contortionists and whatnot. Like you go to Vegas, you see a show, Cirque du Soleil or an Absinthe, and they always have the contortionist stuff, and it just totally like ekes me out. Like I can't look at that stuff without finding it a bit cringeworthy. So, no, that's a legit stupid human trick. Like I don't have anything good. I guess my hidden talent would be I'm a drummer. I can play the drums. That's about it.
Man, love to hear it. So drumming, like that is, if we put a wonky rock band together, I'll make sure to note that down.
Wonky
By the way, can you hear me
rock
right now?
band for the
Because
meetup.
I I took out one of my AirPods because I noticed another thing, like how unprepared I was this morning. My AirPods were sitting out of the case next to the case, so they're at 10%. So I don't know whether this is like the best idea or not, but I put one in the charger and I'm like, all right, like I will talk with the other because the audio still probably sounds better using this than it does like no AirPods at all. And the other one's back in the case. And when this one dies, I'll just swap it out.
Audio is solid. You missed an amazing joke opportunity there. You said you got one at 10%. I'm assuming the other one's at 100%. You add them together, you got 110% there, baby. All day.
I'm assuming they're both at 10%, but if you like rearrange the ones and the zeros there and like just, maybe put a dot, then you got 110%.
Smoke and mirrors. I love it. Hey, any way we can
Smoke and
get there.
mirrors.
Any way we can get
Flip.
there. But
Yeah. So Flip, what's going on today, man? How's it going?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I can't complain, man. Just another Friday. Dude, I'm kind of exhausted right now, actually, to be honest. I woke up at like 2:15 a.m. and then I just couldn't go back to sleep. It was just one of those nights where you just wake up and you're wide awake and it doesn't matter what you do, you go back to sleep and or you can't go back to sleep. And that's kind of where I was for a lot of the morning slash evening slash whatever, the purgatory hours of that time of day are. And kind of reminded me of where I was back in the day, man. Like, because a year ago, I was like that all the time. And I haven't been like that in a while. I usually sleep pretty well, but, kind of reinvigorating a little bit and had like a solid wind going into about 8 or 9 a.m. And then, dude, it just like a tidal wave hit me where I just had to nap for like an hour or two. And that's where I've been coming into this. I woke up about a half hour ago, and like we're getting it rolling again. So, how about yourself?
Pretty good. There's been it's been a pretty wild like last 12 hours or so. There's been like a couple of mints and SudoSwap is just gaining so much traction, racking up
So,
TVL.
what is pseudo swap again? Like, I don't know why I'm so out of the loop.
Yeah,
Let's
so
see.
basically SudoSwap is, you can think of it as an AMM for NFTs, but you can put up liquidity for your NFTs, match it with ETH, and set a sale pretty much on like a bonding curve. So the more people buy the NFTs from your pool, the price goes up. It's all predetermined, and then vice versa. If people sell into the pool, then the NFT price will go down, but the liquidity provider gets cut of the fees. SudoSwap only gets 0.5%, and it actually bypasses the royalties for the team. So, and it's racked up. I think like last I checked, over 2.5 million already in TVL. And it's basically also an ARB opportunity for bots or for people, because if the pricing is changing in SudoSwap, but it's staying the same on OpenSea, so there's a lot of ARB opportunities. There's already people programming bots to kind of ARB opportunities, but the liquidity providers are just have been killing it. And one project actually provided it's a project owned liquidity for the first time, and that was the base ghouls. And that was kind of the first instance that a project provided their own liquidity, and the project just kind of like took off from there. And a lot of other people are adding liquidity now. So that's kind of what it is in a nutshell. I've used Sudo myself, and also I've met Owen, and he's kind of running the show there. He actually came out with um, Zero X Mons. I don't know if you know that project, but it's kind of like a cult NFT project. It has a really strong following, but it's the same team. But that's kind of what it is in a nutshell, Kaleo. It's this has the potential, I think, to change the meta in the NFT space. Just imagine, I mean, you would appreciate this, just having instant liquidity and adding that into NFTs. It could very well, kickstart the next NFT bull run. But what are your initial thoughts?
Dude, it sounds pretty cool. So, one of the things that I think that it sounds like it could potentially open the door for is, if you have more instant liquidity, with that type of setup, then it also provides the door to be able to better use NFTs as potential collateral. So if you have instant liquidity and, there's it's a little bit easier to be able to do some type of equation for a risk curve, equating that back to like, you know, collateralization towards something else, right? So, like, that's been one of the interesting propositions that I feel like, we're definitely going to get there as the NFT marketplace becomes more robust, but we haven't really gotten there yet, right? Like, for instance, where we are right now, we were never there years ago as far as like using NFT or not, but using like shit coins as collateral on exchanges, for instance, right? Like there are people that use shit coins as collateral on centralized and decentralized exchanges, and that wasn't really something that necessarily existed just several years ago. People just didn't trust it, and like the NFT marketplace is something that I see really similar. It's just so early right now that it's not really proven as far as the dynamics of, you know, the way that it works. And a lot of people, I think, just aren't willing to assume that type of risk as far as collateralization because, again, there is no guarantee as far as the liquidity side is concerned. So you start to add a little bit more instant liquidity. I think that could open up the door for, and again, like if that starts to be a larger component of a lot of these projects and of the trading of it, then it really does open a lot more doors for potential use cases as well. So, it's a really interesting proposition. I don't know, man. Like, I've got to look into it a little bit more. I'm surprised I haven't heard much about it. I think I've seen like a couple tweets about it, but hadn't really seen too much on it.
Cool. I think that's a really interesting point about lending, actually. I didn't even think about that impact that it could have on the road to being able to borrow against your NFT potentially without having to set up like just a peer to peer, like on NFTFi, that whole platform. But it's that's a really good point, Kaleo. But yeah, I definitely look into it. It's pretty much catching the eye of a lot of people, and TVL is just ramping up right now. But also just wanted to touch on a. Did you see these Bebos, Kaleo?
I've seen y'all post about it, man. That's and it looks like they've kind of been the hottest new mint as far as the last week that I've seen. I saw that Bogfather said that he minted the number one rarity
He
Bebo.
did.
I guess if you enter it, like you mint out enough, it's bound to happen eventually.
Uh, it's
No,
it's um it's at 0.81 floor on OpenSea right now. Mint was zero point 0.1 last night, and it's already done on OpenSea 362 ETH in total volume. Um, there's also a pretty big SudoSwap pool. Um, so that I'm curious to see what the volume is on there, but yeah, it's I don't really know what they do or what they will be able to do, but it's all on chain, and I don't know, they're pretty cute, and I don't, we'll see where this goes. You never know with these things, right? Like if it's just like a for a few days, or if it's something that becomes like a mainstay. But yeah, I just wanted to come up here real quick and um, say what's up. And I know you mentioned you were feeling kind of burnt out, so hope you took the time to kind of
no,
recharge.
not burnt out, man. I think I tweeted out something about being burnt out like a few days ago, where I just needed like a few days off. Where, dude, it wasn't the Twitter side of things or the crypto side of things where I felt burnt out. It was just like the life of traveling around a ton, man. Like where I think enough time away and just on the road and that type of stuff, sometimes like you just need a minute to recharge, and I think that's kind of where I was for just a couple days at the beginning of this week. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm good, man, so I appreciate that though.
Cool, man. Yeah, it's Bog actually was the one who shared the Bebo's mint with with us in the it's like a private Discord for Abasha holders. I know PP's here, but it's like this small collection that started minting like over a year ago, and um, it was kind of dug up recently. Um, I don't know if PP has time to talk, but basically it's like holders have like this private chat, and Bog actually shared the Bebo's mint there, and then so we got in time for the mint, and was pretty happy for him to get the number one rarity. So curious to see where that goes, but yeah, I'm gonna step down, but good chatting with you as always, Kaleo, and have a good rest of the week.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming up. Take it easy. Rooster, what's going on, man? Welcome back. How's your week been?
At 2:30 on Monday. Okay. So it would have to be first thing in great, man. Just tried to go into the D. But
Nice.
to get my new license finally.
2:30 on Monday.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be now, because apparently they don't do licenses at this particular DMV that was close to my house for some reason.
Dude, that's it's tough, man. It's tough. Like everything about the DMV is just pure hell. So I feel for you right now. I don't think I've ever had a DMV experience that lasted like less than a couple of hours.
No, yeah, 100%. So that's why we're
And
just gonna make an appointment for Monday morning and get it,
for
because
those
we have to
outside
go
of the
like
U.S.,
downtown now, and that one's gonna be packed.
it's tough. Yeah, for those outside the U.S., I'm not sure if it's any easier, but in the U.S., yeah, dude, like it's not fun. At least anywhere that I've ever lived.
But yeah, that's been my morning. How's it been going, man?
I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, like kind of a little bit off on sleep and all that stuff right now, but like it's fine. Like I feel like I haven't been tired enough during the day in a while, which is typically a sign of not working hard enough. So I am fine with being tired because whenever I got on my degen track this morning and I woke up and I was just going through random shit, like, I was just going down different rabbit holes, reading different articles and, diving down and just, like I felt like even though I was awake, my mind was racing and I was, decently productive with that. So one of those things, like I appreciate that as far as rolling that productivity into the day and, continuing forward from there. So, yeah, man, everything's well, can't complain.
Love what you said about being tired, equating to how hard you're working. Because I woke up this morning so tired.
Bro, I love it, man. I love it. I mean, but like there really is a correlation a lot of the time, right? Like, you're tired for one of two reasons. Either because, actually, I'm going to say one of three reasons. Either one, you're tired because you're working hard doing something productive, right? Or, you're two is you're just a dumbass and you're doing something that you shouldn't be and you don't have the discipline that you need to be able to like control yourself and manage your time wisely. We're going to throw that one out the window for now. Three is you're just lazy and you're doing absolutely nothing. And because you do nothing and because you get so much rest, your body is just weighed down. You're not producing endorphins. You're not getting up and like, giving yourself energy by being active and doing stuff. So, I'm going to go ahead and go with this one as a tired of actually doing something versus not doing anything though. So, like it's the good tired. You feel slightly accomplished tired. You're a little bit exhausted, but you look back and you're like, I'm not a complete lazy piece of shit.
Might I propose a fourth option, and that would be dad life. Dad life is real. As an elder statesman and boomer, so to speak, in this space, dad life with kids is totally real, and they will suck, children, that is, will suck the lifeblood and energy right out of you. But I digress from there.
Bro, you're speaking a different language than Rooster and I can understand right now. So I appreciate your perspective, Cube, because I think Rooster. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out of pocket here. I don't know. Rooster might have like 7 little roosters, little chicklets running around.
No, there are not currently any chicklets.
But yeah, man, I do remember from all of back when I used to work in the corporate world, seeing all my friends that I was working with as they were getting kids coming to work. And, the funniest thing was how they viewed work as an escape, where they loved coming to the office because they almost got like a break from just everything else that was going on for a minute. And I never understood that. But looking at it now, where, I don't really have an office or any of that type of like my office is the house. Like if I had kids, I feel like I would have to get an office out of the house to be able to have an excuse to go out occasionally and get like, yeah, and not that I wouldn't love the kids and love being there, but like, I feel like that would eventually, because even right now, just being at home while I am working, and that's where the office is. Like, what do I end up getting assigned because I am always home? Anytime the girlfriend is gone, I get dog duty 24/7. It's like, she goes on business trips, does this or that. It's like, hey, you're getting the dog. And like, I love the dog. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely love it. But that is not necessarily a responsibility that I signed up for going into it. So, I can only imagine that the kid side of things is going to be tenfold worse. That whatever I am doing that is not like actually with a corporate whatever and for myself is going to be perceived as a flexible hobby, and that I will have to mold my life around all the other stuff. I'll be the drive-through pickup line dad, all with like whatever that stuff is. Like, it's bound to happen.
Oh yeah, you're speaking true
10%.
words to me right there.
But saying
Go
it's
ahead,
only
Q.
going to be 10x, it's more like a 100x life altering experience. This is what I would boil parenting down to, and love our kids to death. there are far more shitty, stressful experiences being a parent than there are the good ones. It's a complete time sink. So the awesome stuff like walking for the first time, saying words, that trumps all the bull crap, all the lost energy in space. But to your point earlier that you point out, talking about your buddies in the corporate world. Fortunate enough, my wife works. She's very successful. We go to daycare. Those 3-day weekends.
I believe it, man. I believe it. And yeah, so, I appreciate the perspective because, I was going to say boomer talking to Zoomers, but I don't know if that's true either. Like I'm a boomer that just hasn't picked up the responsibilities maybe that I need to at this stage of life yet. So, so I, again, appreciate that perspective. And, there are multiple reasons to be tired that are good reasons. Being a dad, being a mom, whatever, definitely one of them. I apologize to parents that are listening out here in the crowd today. And you might be asking yourself, how does this conversation apply to, NFTs and alpha? And, honestly, it doesn't. I'm just messing around. Like everything kind of does in a sense, right? Like if you're talking about NFTs, you're talking about anything else. Like really, what are you talking about in general? You're talking about either the tech, the vibes, like the culture, just general life. And I feel like it's important to address the casual nuances that are underappreciated of life in general.
Yeah, I heard fathering, and I had to hop in here because I'm at my office with 2 kids drawing on stuff with markers. So yeah, I totally feel you, Wonky Cube. It's a lot different than having a dog, but it's also a lot more rewarding because you put it very well said. Like the important stages, like the first walking, like having a conversation with my 5-year-old is like totally outweighs like all the stuff that annoys me. So yeah, I just had to pop in here and say that. And like yeah, I wanted to chime in on Flip Drago's comment earlier talking about the pseudo swap thing. It's a huge deal, I think, for NFTs to have these liquidity pools because, like, one thing that we've been missing from the NFT space is like you had to rely on someone like making an offer or buying something that you put up, and until I think these liquidity pools, it kind of brings new life to an NFT market. I would not be surprised to see Uniswap kind of do the same thing since they took over Genie. But it kind of reminds me of kickstarting DeFi summer back when Uniswap kind of started getting its reign. So would not be surprised to see more and more projects pulling into liquidity with these. So yeah, it's an interesting time in NFT space for sure.
No, it is, man. Like and dude, that's why I'm glad I do these type of spaces because a lot of the time, one thing that can, happen, I feel like pretty easily as far as sifting through different stuff on the timeline. It's easy to let things kind of blend in a little bit as you're reading, right? And it's easy to let like a few keywords. You're like, oh, it's another swap. It's another this or that. And sometimes, it takes a more meaningful conversation to be able to point out just little things like this that, oh, it is different from other swaps. Here's how. And here's how it could be extremely interesting to be able to dive in and really, get a head start looking at how it works and the different applications that could come from it. So, that's what I really appreciate about these type of spaces is it just, again, audio and conversations are completely different from scrolling through and selectively reading on a feed.
I agree. And one thing that me and Bog talked about earlier this morning, we had a smaller space, is you're starting to see these smaller like collections. You hear that? That's not a dog barking. You start you're starting to see these smaller collections mint out, and it's almost like, they're eyeing the market and seeing, maybe I don't need to mint 5,000 pieces. Maybe 500 is enough. Maybe 800 is enough, and it's almost like a test mint, and like, um, you know, you don't have to have these huge collection sizes, and small mint meta, I think, may be coming to fruition. We just minted out Deer Pack this morning, Basho, and then last night, like Bebo's minted out. That's 1,111. So small mints may be worth looking into, especially if you can get into them early.
Well, here would be my thought on like small mints. There's an inherent risk by going with a large collection. You look like an asshole if you don't mint out right. If you do a small mint, it mints out, and there's enough interest. Why not just launch a secondary collection or something that's associated with it? I mean, in my mind, logically, if I were going to do something, I'd probably lean towards a smaller mint size, just for that reason.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on there. Like Chubby Corns did it best, I think, late last year by doing the Chubby Friends. They had the 250 piece collection just to kind of launch it, and like that went crazy because there's only 250, and then it's just like kind of almost like a test mint, like, and it's also like it's easier to sell out, and once you do, you have these diehard people that are like, I'm part of one of 250 or something like that, and building a community with 250 people is a lot easier than trying to do it with like 10,000, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I feel like a big part of that dynamic right now is you have to consider where we are in the market, right? The overall number of participants that are eager to rush in, the amount of speculative money that's sitting on the sideline willing to take those type of risks isn't nearly at the level that we were, 12 months ago, whenever we were in the heart of the beginning of this craze, right? August of last year, when Bitcoin was starting to surge back, we were only a couple months off the highs for May. I know we had a big crash at that point, but like things were starting to surge back a little bit as Bitcoin started to climb. We started to see a little bit of other stuff going on. The apes were starting to surge a little bit. And then with that, you start to see other collections like the penguins, et cetera, start to take off. It really set off this craze where seeing what type of multiples were possible in the NFT marketplace, with it being so new, you got a lot of new speculative money kind of going along with that bullish momentum of the broader market as a whole. So right now, whether we are, we're in a bear market, right? And like whether we continue to climb up to 30, whether we dip down to 20, whatever it is, I think that we're going to have relative stagnant growth for, like a little period of time. And until things pick back up, the smaller mint size is probably the way to go for a lot of these different collections, right? Because it's easier to be able to establish a heart, of a community that you can support. You don't want to have a supply that, exceeds the community right off the bat, because one of the worst things that I think can happen, a death nail for a project, even if it's an incredible project, is not being able to mint out. So you have to understand what the market conditions are, no matter what you have going to the table, and to be able to reflect that with both, the mint price that you're going for and the collection size.
I agree completely. I think, it's going to be kind of interesting to see like what happens with some of these older projects. I feel like some of the, I'm just going to use the penguins, but we got a little lucky that, there's 88 of them, but there was enough demand there. And I guess the appeal was large enough that even in the bear market, like they're doing fine. But you have like these other projects that are 10K. And if you kind of like use like ICOs in 2017 as an example, a lot of those Dino coins just never like eclipsed their old all-time highs, because you had people that just wanted to sell for break even. And you could, the multiples were still kind of there, but like you saw DeFi coins that were just released during the bear market just outperformed them drastically. So like if you can use that as like a benchmark, or like, it's kind of like a little apples and oranges, but you still have like similar market participants, similar market. I think you're going to see that with NFTs too. And even though there's an order of magnitude more people that are assuming in the next run we'll join the space, that's gonna it still, I don't think will bail out some of these projects, but we'll see.
And this is completely
So
speculative, right? Like all of this is. We don't. No. Go ahead, Rooster.
no, go
I
ahead.
want to hear you before I ramble anymore.
I was going to ask if we talked about moonbirds yet in the beginning of space. If I missed that.
No, we have not, but I do want to talk about that. And I say we switch to that here in just a second because I had one other thought on the collection size and all that stuff. So here I think
Yeah,
like
for
the
sure.
pros and the cons right now of the smaller collection and being able to start off with it. Right now, obviously, I think in order to kickstart kind of any type of run at this point, it's a lot easier to do with a smaller collection size. The issue that I see with it is the staying power, right? Because obviously, if you're able to gain traction with a larger collection, you have a larger audience and a larger pool of people that are able to then, grow that ecosystem out. Like your growth isn't quite as limited as some of the smaller collections are, whereas the smaller collections, like that's just the issue at the end of the day that I see with them is like you've seen this with a bunch of smaller collections across the table. Unless they are part of a larger ecosystem as a whole, if they're a standalone smaller collection, like it's difficult for them to really thrive. And I ask myself, like, as things start to die out a little bit with some of these, how do they end up coming back? And I don't know. And like obviously I'm not the expert in the room. It's just one of the things that I've personally asked myself going into it with, looking at a sample size of, like for instance, I forget which one you had, the really cute cows back in the day, Bogfather.
Oh man, we don't want to talk about the piggy pals. R.I.P.
Yeah,
the
the Piggy
piggy
Pals.
pals.
That's what it was. The Piggy Pals, bro. Because the Piggy Pals were killing it there for a minute. And then, like I asked myself, what would it take for the Piggy Pals to get back there? Do they have, the voice, the reach, the this, the that? Like, is there and I don't know. Like, I don't know the answer to that question. But as far as like resurgence, I just think it's easier for a collection that has a larger audience to be able to potentially reclaim that. And like maybe I'm completely wrong, and we'll see. Obviously heading into the next cycle as things end up playing out, but
real
I don't
real
know, man.
quick real quick though, I just want, before we talk about the moon cats or whatever, but you make like a bunch of good points, and I think these are all case studies, right? Like we're gonna look back next cycle and be like, I'd be like a Monday morning quarterback on certain things, and like, oh, how we didn't get into this, or how we didn't see that coming, and it was kind of obvious. But I think at the core thing is really the community, and if like you keep the community strong, and I mean, let's say the Piggy Pals, they failed because they just didn't, they did nothing. Like the team was stagnant and they didn't really keep the community going. And like I see now with like what the Pudgies are doing, it's like, and the Chubby Corns, it's like little silly things. I know it's silly and it's like, how does this add value? But like the gifts or whatever, it's just a way to communicate, and it's like like ways to stay active every day, like saying good morning or whatever. Like, okay, yeah, it could be annoying, but you're getting people to consistently tweet about it every day, like, and like you have like a community that's staying active regardless of, like, they don't care about the value is always a large part of that formula, but you need to have that community, keep them engaged, and if you lose that, that's the hardest thing. Like, how do you round up everyone? Like, even if it's like a small project like that, where there's I think 400 of those little piggies, it's like if you don't have an active team doing something, and you don't engage the community, like there's just literally no way like you can really come back from that. Apart from like some like meme, like some kind of like white swan event or something, but yeah, it's really interesting, and I honestly, I don't even know. I don't think any of us are experts right now, right? Like, this is so, like, it's in a nascent stage, so we have no idea what the hell is going to happen. But I think we can kind of use some kind of clues from being in the space for a little bit to see, like I said, it's apples and oranges, but at the same time, it's kind of like market psychology too. There's some kind of like behavioral finance aspect to it, but
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
there's a
I
lot
don't
of
know, so.
first mover advantage when you think of communities as well too. Like a lot of people have their home community, like, you know, even being a part of many projects, a lot of people have their home communities. Like for me, you know, Wonky Stonks, probably penguins or something along those lines, like other PA. Like I barely go into the PA Discord just because, you know, I love being a part of that community, love the team, love everything, but I don't spend my time like in that Discord just because there's so many other things that I need to be doing. So I also think that first mover advantage, like being early into NFTs, provides a little leg up on staying power, because then all these newer projects have to bring people from their original home communities to, you know, spend time being in this community, like retweet, you know, community, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah, and just one more point. Like, I think the cross pollination aspect's really interesting. And Clay, you're talking about like smaller collections. The way I look at it, so if you have, let's like say 10 small like 500 piece projects, and right now it's a lot of penguins, it's a lot of chubby corns, it's a lot of like seals, like whatever. Like in those handful of people that are active, like technically, like you have multiple collections of like the same strong core community where they can feel a part of something, where it's like it's like if you can think about it as merging multiple small communities into one bigger one, but it's also just a wide variety, right? And at the same time, I'm sure there's cons there, but I think it's just a different way of looking at it. And I think I mean, there, you know, I don't think it's as much of a con as like you might think of saying like, hey, we can't grow this larger. And I think you could always augment that by like always just releasing something like PP was saying later on. But again, like I
Well,
don't
and I
know.
guess that's what like Chubby Corns did with the Chubby Burst, right? Like, so that's a good example. If you gain high traction with that smaller collection at the beginning, then you're able to potentially grow that ecosystem if the demand exists.
And before we move on from small collection sizes, I'm going to take a moment to kind of talk about. I know Flip brought it up earlier, but if you haven't heard of a Basho, it's a collection that someone did over 400 days ago, and he only like minted it out to like 2 or 3 different friends, and like it never minted out. It was like 30 that were minted, and it sat dormant. And then like last week, I saw like a couple people mint, and then I was like, oh, these look cool. So I minted like 14 of them, and then like just tweeted about it. Within like 15 minutes, the thing minted out. And so we formed our own little Discord, and that's how I found about Bebo's, because it's become kind of like an alpha Discord. There's 250 pieces, but we've decided to like basically we've talked to the artists and decided to form it into a DAO, and the DAO is going to basically vote on basically featuring a new artist every month, and Abasho holders will get if they can produce 250 pieces, then fine, we'll get 250 pieces. But we can do different what do they call them? Sorry, I got 2 kids running around. But we could do like one piece where it's just like an edition where every single Abasho gets the chance to mint it. And those won't be free, I don't think. It'll be like a small mint price. So basically, we kickstart a new artist every single month to help get discovered, because that's how this project was kind of like jump started. Is it was discovered like 400 days like after it had minted out. So it's become quite the little community. So if you can find those projects that have those kind of like heart stories, I'd look into them seriously.
Can I add to the earlier point? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. How you guys doing? How you guys doing, man? The Wonky Space. I'm in the road again. Joining Q Rugging. Hey. Okay, so here is my theory with the smaller collection. I think it's all about context, right? And what the collection is about. Obviously, for like artists where the art is more unique and stuff like that, a smaller collection and all of that, like it can work out, right? Like you're not expecting any utility. I do believe as we move on, like I see a lot of tweets on the feed about, you know, NFTs and utility and that. If the collection is not based on that, you know, and it's just a collection to vibe or whatever, the community, that's fine. But I do see utility being key in the future, and launching with a smaller collection and then scaling being a thing as to like growing a business pretty much, as to just launching on a bigger size and maybe not being able to handle even maybe it's a little more costly setting up a server for 10,000 users for whatever you're providing as to say for 500 and testing out the product and growing it in that way. That's what I see as to what the benefit is going to be the most, and pretty much making the everybody that's buying, making them understand like there's going to be the new wave where a project releases maybe 500 mints at a time, and because you're providing something that you're basically pretty much not interested in flipping it right away, a service or whatever. I think that's a huge, that could be a huge point for what I believe the future of NFTs will be, separate from what we have right now.
That's fair, man. That's fair. And yeah, like, again, it all goes back to, looking at like the potential that we were talking about earlier that SudoSwap could unlock as far as instant liquidity and being able to drive a little bit more of an ecosystem with collateralization of NFTs down the road. Like, I don't know, man. Like, there's just a lot of interesting things that I think have yet to be developed in this space. But it's the fun thing about it is, we are sitting here speculating so much about the growth that will happen. Like, it's not a matter of if, in my opinion. It is a matter of when and exactly what it looks like. And, like, so that's the fun thing. Like, we're sitting here, we're speculating. A lot of these answers are going to be wrong, probably most of them, but like, there are going to be a few of those answers that are right. And I think that it's about the perseverance of being able to stick around and being part of that growth where the opportunity presents itself. So we'll see, man. So Rooster, though, what you were talking about the CCO and the Moonbirds. What is your take on all that?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I haven't been able to dive deep. I was, prepping to go to the DMV this morning. So here's like kind of how I found out about it. I would just like randomly woke up in the middle of the night. So out of just force of habit, checked Icy Tools, right? And so Moonbirds 2 trending, for like very cheap price. And I was about to actually sweep a few, just off momentum, but I was half asleep, so I decided, asked myself why. I was like, why am I buying these right now? So I just turned my phone off, went back to sleep, and then woke up and saw the Kevin Rose tweet. So apparently, Moonbirds, the holders initially had the IP rights to the birds, and then now, what it seems like is taken away. They've moved to CCO, so now the individuals no longer have the IP rights to their specific bird. And from my understanding, it was announced or it was known pre-mint that you were going to own the IP rights, so it's a little bit deceiving, and especially not taking community vote. Like, I don't know where to draw the line between, holders of a project and the team, whereas are they holders? Like, you can't really classify them as investors because then it'd be a security, but they are the people who are holding your project. So it is slightly deceiving, and they didn't, do a vote or clear anything with the community at first. They kind of just, revoked it. And so, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, because I do respect a boundary between team and, holders of the project. especially whenever you start going more DAO formed and people have different ideas, then progression of the project actually taking a lot longer than being quicker. So yeah, I don't know because I'm not a part of the community. I'm glad that hasn't happened in any community that I've been a part of. So I can't really give like firsthand perspective on it, but as an outside point of view, um, that comes off as a little untrustworthy to me.
Yeah, like here's my take on it. And again, like you said, I'm not a Moonbirds holder, so it's a little bit more difficult to be able to take my take versus somebody that actually is part of the project. Because I have seen several people that are part of the project that are actually excited about it. And personally, though, I look at it and I do see it as a little bit disingenuous to just go out and for them to make the executive decision because, the way that the project was sold is that you have the rights to your birds whenever you buy them. If you are the holder of that bird, you have the rights. So if that is the case, I think there's a solid legal case now against, whatever. I forget who owns Moonbirds, like Proof Collective or whatever, that they are giving away rights that they don't technically own at that point, right? Like, because if and I am no attorney, take everything I say with a grain of salt, et cetera, but that's the way that I would view it is because, like without each individual that owns the IP that they purchased along with those birds, then without each individual's consent, then how can you put that up as a CCO? Like it should be the individual's right to put each bird on a CCO, right? So it's like bird number, 8362 has a CCO. And anything can be done with that. I think that is really cool. If the holder of that bird said from now on, like, that is what this bird is, that's fine. But, like, for the actual collection to make the executive decision without the holder's explicit consent does seem rather disingenuous.
So what
100%.
does being a CCO provide now, I guess, to people outside of Moonbirds? Like, what are they now able to use with the Moonbirds IP?
Oh man, dude, I want to look on, like, again, I need to do a little bit more research myself because I know basically public copyright license. I don't know. I want to dive into it a little bit more because I think there might be some type of extent as far as like for-profit type cases. But I am not positive as I say that, right? So like that's the one thing that I want to clarify before I go any further. I'm not sure where that goes, but again, like
it allows pretty much just like anybody to be able to use that IP. Again, I'm in the same boat as you. I virtually did zero deep diving after I found out about it this morning. Was busy. That's why I was asking if you guys already talked about it. But I find that interesting because about 15 minutes ago, OpenSea just delisted Moonbirds 2 off of OpenSea. And even though Kevin Rose like specifically had made some type of tweet saying that any here, let me go read the tweet actually. Let me go down to my computer so I don't paraphrase this incorrectly.
well, yeah, again, so without having the clear fit like that's the only thing that feels a little bit disingenuous to me from the outside looking in without being an expert in any of these matters. I do feel like it's one of those things, the way that it's done, say that we are wrong in our interpretation of this, Rooster. Like, I just feel like the way that it was done was rather abrupt and without community consent. And I feel like it would have been received much better had it been proposed to the community a little bit earlier, and especially the direction and what it means for you as a holder, rather than just throwing it on them one day and saying, hey, this is a change, this is what it is, this is what you thought we were initially, but this is what you are now. And like, that just didn't feel very transparent. And I don't know if it felt 100% correct either. So that is my whole take, is that I think that with these type of steps, if you tell your community one thing, if you were making a major decision as far as the rights they have to what they own, then they should be part of that conversation if they were, guaranteed those rights going into it. So
no, right. If you promise someone something, or tell them something is going to be a certain way, proceed to take their money, proceed to rise in value and trade. I don't even know how many thousands of ETH, and then do the exact opposite. Yes, I feel that it's an incorrect movement.
Hey, you're cutting out just a little bit, man.
Okay, maybe because
you're rugging a little bit on us. There you go. You're back.
Back? Okay, it was because I got closer to my laundry room. It's like a five bomb shelters. But what I was saying is like, doesn't matter where you're in, not just being NFTs. If you tell somebody something, take their money, proceed to trade thousands of ETH in value of it, thousands and thousands, and then go and do the exact opposite. That's not good business practice in any sense.
It seems shady to me. I mean, CCO, to allow for anybody to use it for any purpose. For what? Like it completely goes against what NFTs are supposed to be. You buying something that you feel like is yours and yours only until you sell it.
Again, I don't know if I fully agree with that yet, because it's difficult for me to make an abrupt decision on whether it's a good or a bad thing without having a clear understanding of the CCO. So I don't want to jump to the conclusion of whether it's good, whether it's bad, what it actually does to the holder, whether it benefits them or whether it doesn't. Again, I think that I have a little bit more of an issue with is just the way that it was handled as far as the change and the presentation of the community.
I completely understand. It feels completely like a rug. I've just that like wondering in my head of how a CDCO would benefit an artist, maybe an up and coming artist. Like, even on the game side, you have a lot of assets that are completely free, and maybe the artist says, give me a shout out. Obviously, anybody taking that serious, they won't use any of those assets. But as far as not even communicating with the community, for me, I believe it could take some away. I mean, it takes a lot away of. It's like rugging, completely rugging the community. But also, if the project is art based, not so much data driven or anything else like that, I think that is a huge thing, to be honest. Completely, I don't think we can underestimate giving rights to anybody to do whatever they want with unique images. I think that's just my opinion, though. Not.
Yeah, so
Bruce, you're rugging again, brother.
Hold in a word. Oh, how?
I don't know how or why, but it's happening.
It says effectively relinquishing all copyright and similar rights that you hold in a work and dedicating those rights to public domain. They know anybody can do whatever they want from Moonbirds. And from just interpreting it, I feel like the play that they're trying to move is like wanting more free advertisement for the original collection because it is verified on the blockchain, right? So even though there's Moonbirds 2, AI birds, bird owls, whatever, you can still verify the original collection, right? Moonbirds is the original collection. And I think that they're probably thinking that if we allow people to freely use moonbirds, then that's going to bring more attention, more awareness to the original collection, therefore raising our value, is what I think the play they might be going for there is.
But with giving away the rights, it means I don't have to purchase your collection to do anything I want with it.
Yeah, you don't
So
have to purchase the collection to do anything you want with it, but they think that will in turn drive value to the original collection. Because even though, you can, make your own Moonbird NFT or whatever and mint it and have it in your wallet or whatever, someone else still owns the original piece of the artwork, and that is verifiable. So it seems like they're trying to get ahead of the curve and kind of stress test the utility in NFTs and to, I guess, see where people see the true value. And if their thesis is right, it might make Moonbirds a global brand for the original collection for free.
Well, I can see that. I think I can see that as being an experiment. I mean, we'll see if we're right or wrong. Obviously, I'm not saying anything will happen, good or bad. It's just I like to put out I love these conversations and looking at it from both sides. Like obviously the benefit is that if somebody picks up the art and does anything with it, that can be spread out and give recognition or whatever. It's just as a creator, I don't see why the heck would I even touch it if I don't own it. You know what I mean? If I'm trying to build anything, I don't know why I go grab your art to build something with it. And that might be different, like listening that for me, but I create. That's what I like to do, and it's just a little bit weird, to be honest. I think it's a long shot, but I guess we'll see. Definitely, what you're saying about the stress test.
Yeah, okay, so, the more I am reading into it, you're right, CCO is like the most extreme of like trying to waive basically all rights to it in order to be able to build upon the product. But I really, here's my only issue that I ask myself. Again, what utility does Moonbirds have that people really want to build upon right now as far as taking the licenses to it and then going to do something if they don't have any other type of skin in the game as far as the investment behind the birds themselves? No offense, they're ugly ass pixelated birds. What is going to be done with those immediately right now if there isn't some inherent value to the holders themselves? Because again, outside of just potentially right now that I'm looking, I just don't understand what people would want to do with that CCO other than what was just done with the Moonbirds 2 type, which again, looking at it, as far as the CCO license, it looks like the Moonbirds 2 thing was perfectly legal and should be upheld because they relinquished all rights going into it. So yeah, that exactly. Is a little bit of an interesting conundrum going deeper into that I don't know, man. I think it'll really be a non-event, and it's not like it's a piece of code, right? Because if it's a piece of code that has some type of purpose that can be used to build upon other code, then great. But it's not really code; it's a hash, right? So.
Yeah. So I think the OpenSea thing is just for one, them being central, super centralized exchange and overstepping their bounds, and probably took the initiative on that. I doubt the 5 employees that they have left at OpenSea even know about the recent Moonbirds news. So I bet they just acted on that as their own without any reasonable intelligence to do so. And then what I think, to answer your other question of like, what do you think they're going to be trying to do now? I think they're probably just going to try to flood retail market with just like, Walmart $10 Walmart t-shirts with the Moonbirds on it, and they'll make like they'll probably try and outreach to other, larger Web2 companies and essentially like strike some deals with them and maybe like do 1,000 of the Moonbirds with Target and 1,000 of the Moonbirds with Walmart and essentially just flood retail market and to pretty much throw a Hail Mary. Hopefully it gets caught in the end zone and it works as, free public branding. Then Moonbirds is multinationally recognized. And then the original artwork will appeal to just collectors because they're one of, the first to do this type of thing in this new space. That's my thought, or at least the interpretation.
You're right. Like that is the potential upside of it, right? Like, you never know the potential effect of something going viral. And in order to spark, any, like right now, it's a relatively dead market. And to be able to spark some type of life, I could see a step like that potentially being able to somehow be caught in some type of net and maybe gaining some type of traction with that. But I still think it's a little bit of a reach right now. And, honestly, I'm glad they're doing it. Like, only from because it's like, let the experiment play out. We'll see what happens. But, the only thing that is going to happen if it does go well is that there are going to be a million projects that immediately go CCO after that. And there's just not going to be the demand in the larger space for all of those projects that are CCO. So we'll see. Again, like it just doesn't make as much sense to me from a contractual viewpoint, because if you're looking at it, I think the main, like it's art that you're talking about that they're licensing out to other people. So like I'm just asking myself, outside of like graphic designs and that type of stuff, like what is the real allure of that? Are people really going to make a Moonbirds TV show, or are they going to do something like that? Like I guess TBD.
Integrate them into Angry Birds.
Exactly, like a viral video game.
But regardless of like what their plan is, I am curious on the legal implications with the lack of regulations in this space, because what is, at this point, like what is legally binding for an NFT project? Is it just announcing, or having posted on your website that you're something, or simply is making a tweet that, this is your quote unquote roadmap or whatever? Kind of brings into question of like what is actually legally binding to what you announce to your community.
Well, okay, so I'm sorry, I love this conversation. To get to that point, right, on what's legal and what's not. If you think about minting an NFT, right, and somebody else is getting that money, I mean, even besides free mints or whatever, I think projects got to state the licensing behind what you're purchasing, right? The image that's there, do you own the image or just a representation? What can you do? What can you not do with it? For those that are marketing this, you own it all, right? Like it's your IP, you can go ahead and build a company with it. Those that are doing that from the get-go, that's going to be the most complex side of things, right? Because you are from the beginning, you're telling the user that they can do whatever they want with that. It's like they're buying into that. And then in this case, they get rug. I completely see that as something illegal, even if the regulation is not here yet. Um, I bought your product, and it was stated at this and this and that, and then later on you change your mind, and I already have it. Now I want my refund. And if I cannot get a refund, then we have a problem. And I think besides everything, money is involved. It is a business first, and everything else is later. And the business laws and all that stuff will need to apply to this.
Bro, to be
And
fair, the refund right now would be like 2 ETH or 2.5 ETH or something for the original mint. So I still think that like the value proposition is still, it's difficult to argue. It hasn't immediately cratered back down beneath that. It's not like, the 888 situation where, they had to mess with the 888 mints and, I forget what it was. The BTE Orbs collection, I think they had that whole mess with. But like so, I see it a little bit different as that because as a holder, they've still delivered relatively, pretty strong performance on the mint.
no, I
Yeah, to
understand that.
the initial holders, but then there's many, many, many people who, and I guess the project is absolved of any aftermarket sales, and what the floor price is post what they initially charged for it. But I mean, first week, didn't they get up to like 30 plus ETH, and many were traded at that, and they stayed above 25, 20 for a while.
No, it's true, man. I mean, again, people are greedy, so I would be shocked if there is not some type of class action lawsuit against Proof Collective for one reason or another. For like, heck, if I were a Moonbirds holder, I mean, I would be tempted to do that. I really would. So, some type of class action lawsuit against Proof Collective because they made a shit ton off royalties and everything else. Like, they've got solid bank of funds to be able to draw from. And if you feel like your rights have been infringed upon, then, you should have a decent case, I would assume.
This might be a hot take, but I feel bad, obviously, for the people that are involved and I don't know that are affected by this. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel like some of these projects are just like imploding, which I didn't expect. But that's why I'm going to show the Pudgies. But I mean, they know it, like in terms of like the way they view things is like, they're like an IP company and like they're like, yeah, I think we can like kind of license our stuff to a certain amount of money, but it's like if at a certain point, like if you have like a big deal with like a major company, like they want to like control like direction of the brand, and it's like something as which makes sense. Like you want like tight control of the brand, and at the end of the day, it's beneficial to the company that like in their case that they bought the IP, but also to you as a holder. So it's gonna be interesting to see like the dynamics between the teams and all this stuff, but. I can't believe like some of these projects. It's like they have such a head start and like a first mover advantage, and they're just kind of like shooting themselves in the foot. But I guess that's just crypto.
And that's
So,
right. And
like,
go ahead, Bruce.
I was just gonna say that brings up a question, Kaleo. Where do we stand on our IP rights for the Wonky Stonks?
I'm pretty positive that like we have it on there where y'all own all the IP rights, like almost 100% positive. I want to say 100%, but like I'm fairly positive. I think we can go on the LedgArt website and it has it on there. But yeah, like y'all own the IP as far as I know right now. I mean, need to go and double check if we don't have that language. I need to put it in there because like it's intended. But that's it, man. Like y'all own the stonks. Y'all own the rights as far as I'm
I knew
concerned.
we did. I just, for all the other people in the
Yeah.
audience, kind of wanted to flex.
That's it, man. Like, I mean, but that's the way it should be, in my opinion, right? Like, if you own art, you have the right to do with that art what you want, right? Like, a bunch of these museums, for instance, if they hold a painter's collection, like the painter isn't going to say, well, you can't advertise that you have that piece in your museum, and you can't use that to be able to drive traffic and to be able to do this and that, because I was the original painter. That just doesn't make sense to me. I don't see how any real collection could go and say that and say, well, yeah, you're a holder of it, but you actually don't own the rights to be able to do anything with it. That just doesn't make sense. So, that's why, the stonks and anything else that we ever do is going to be that way, because it just doesn't make sense for it to be anything else, in my opinion. If you are the holder, you own the piece. And, I really just don't see how there's an in between.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I want to make the point to close, finish my point with the moonbirds. If I own a stonk, that I purchased, and I love it. It is my identity, my profile picture. I'm part of the community. And then Kaleo goes and says, we're changing, we're going moonbird. And anybody else can have that. And not only that, they can take that stonk that I fell in love with and make money off of it completely outside of crypto. They don't even have to look this way. That is the biggest point that I'm trying to make with it. The blockchain can be left behind, and that could become a product of its own, and they don't have to look. They don't care. The moment that becomes that way. And so for me, that is a huge thing. That's a huge red flag on the way, especially it's like backstabbing the community. I will feel like that 100%. I do not support it. I want to get that clear. I'm sorry if it's too drastic. It's just, I'm in art. I build stuff. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see that being the right way of doing things. I think the brand pushing and building benefits the community. I think the Godfather was saying down there. Completely agree with that, and the guidance of the brand benefits everybody as a whole, and doing things with the whole project like that. As far as just giving it up that you don't even know who can pick it up, if a company that their values don't line up with you picks up that and does something, how are you gonna feel about your collection? Those are things that experiment that they trying right there. Hopefully it works out, but I don't think it should not be the way of the future. I mean,
what if the next mass serial killer picture Moonbird as their new slogan or as their new calling card?
Oh my God. The other thing was B-Ways always some of the projects, it's like you're buying into it, right? Like the future, like you're owning a little piece of it. And it's like if you're buying into Apple, maybe in that particular thing, you don't own the IP, right? Because that's not what they're displaying. Like that's completely different. But in a much smaller, right, business collection or whatever you want to call it, that could be what gets you to buy it, right? That it looks really cool. Let me check if I can do something with it if I wanted to, or if I have for permission every time, that opportunity comes up. Stuff like that. I think the NFT market is too wide, too big to say what's right and what's wrong. But when the project it is a PFP, and even if it is a shitty piece of art, you still want to feel like you have some sort of right over it, instead of just hey, Google that image and do whatever you want with it.
Bro, here's one of the other things that I look at. For instance, the exact extreme other side of it, punks. Whenever Larva Labs announced for punks that they were like, hey, yeah, you actually don't own the rights to be able to use these for commercial purposes. That's when punks, the punk ape flippening started to begin, because it was at that moment that a lot of people were like, well, why do I really want this if I don't actually have the rights to use it, in a commercial way that I want to use it for. So, apes, on the other hand, were surging, and they were like, if you own your ape, you can do whatever the hell you want with it, right? And, it wasn't until Larva Labs was acquired by Yuga, and Yuga ended up making the decision to, say, hey, like, we're giving the rights back to the holders, that punks really started to gain a little bit of the ground again. And, you've seen a resurgence here over the past month, a couple months really, where, some of these OG blue chips are starting to pick back up a little bit of steam. And it just, like, again, I think that was a perfect example, though, of like the holders have to have the rights. It just doesn't make sense otherwise. It is pure greed, and because I don't know another way that you can truly justify from a developmental perspective of a collection, of releasing it, of not giving the holders those type of rights, right? Like maybe I would say in a gaming type aspect, right? Like if the NFTs are involved in some type of game, and say that it's like some type of sword or this or that, that you're able to plug and play into a game and you have full use of the utility of that token within the game. But like the actual game and everything else behind it is the IP rights. Like that's where I could potentially see not being able to give the full commercial rights to somebody. But outside of that, like if it doesn't have some type of deeper utility and you're buying it for the art, then there's no reason that the holders shouldn't be the owners of that IP. Anyway, that's just my two cents.
No, you're right. You're right. That's completely 100%. Like that should be it, and that should be a red flag for anybody looking into any projects. Maybe the first thing you want to look at, to see if you're getting rugged with that. If you buy it, at least you should do whatever you want. And it makes perfect sense for like software games and stuff like that. Like when you buy an Xbox, right? You can use it, and you're actually benefiting from that. But that doesn't mean you own Xbox, right? That's really different than what we were talking about, which is completely digital art, digital assets, things that can be made like that. Even when you buy a shirt with a picture or whatever, you don't own the rights to that. You own the shirt and you can do whatever you want with the shirt, but you cannot go ahead and, you know, make other shirts out of that shirt using that same image. It doesn't work like that out here. But what we have is unique. It's completely different. And I think that's when a lot of people get lost on what, you know, and maybe some of the projects, they're afraid of missing out on gains, and they end up hurting their own project, by now allowing the community to pretty much have free will with their stuff. So I couldn't agree more with
you. Yeah, same as well. Sorry, I was actually in the process of claiming my moonbird whenever you were finishing up. But yeah, I agree 100% as well. And I welcome, which number is this? Moonbird 2950 as my new official Rooster Moonbird.
I love it, man. I love it.
Sorry.
Well, dude, what it reminds me of right now, like, the funniest troll would just be everybody on crypto Twitter changing their pictures, like their PFPs, to like the same, popular moonbirds, and just, like triggering I'd feel a little bit bad because the community
but
would
is
be a
that
little
what
bit
they
triggered
want
from that aspect.
Is the question.
But like it might be. You're right. It might be. That might be part of the social experiment. But I do feel like there'd be some people triggered to the process. And I think that it would backfire a little bit because the angst of the community, you're going to see would be the exact opposite of what you want whenever you want to be involved in a community, in a project. So, it was like the Bored Ape dude that replied to Elon, like, that's my PFP. And, like, he may have been joking, but, like, the way he presented it did not sound like joking. And Elon got pissed and was like, nah, man, like, I don't give a shit about this, whatever, whatever. And it was all because one guy, said the wrong thing about it. And it kind of just made all apes look a little bit distasteful in that process. I'd actually say the coolest one, the funniest one was whenever Crypto Don Alt bought that ape and he was like, hey, this is my ape, but all of y'all should use it because I am letting you guys all use it as your PFP. This is all of crypto Twitter's PFP now. And there were a lot of people that switched to that PFP after it. I thought that was kind of hilarious because it was like the exact anti-ape sentiment that you see from a lot of guys, because a lot of these apes that have their apes, they're, so protectful that they see anybody else use it, they freak out. They're like, you're a LARP with what you're doing here. You're being disingenuous. You're doing this and that. And they just like harass the people. And I think that it's just not a good look because you know what? F it. If somebody else uses your PFP, unless they're trying to actually flex and say, hey, this is mine, and like trying to sell some other type of product with it, F it. Like, it's just giving your PFP more exposure.
100%. If anyone wants to right click, save this one, the rarest Bebos little blob thing, I don't know what this is, please, you're going to help me sell this thing, but I think, what, the ape thing, I don't want to say too much, but honestly, I think it's the first time those guys were in a cool club of any kind or felt cool in their lives. So they're like, yeah, this is it. This is my personality. Like, they take it a little too far, like they don't get the fun aspect out of this. It's like, dude, just relax a little.
Hey, have you gotten any decent offers on that the rarest Bebos yet?
Not yet. Oddly enough, it's like I've been like just kind of like looking at the floor, and I think it was like over an ETH at some point, but like no one's like bidding rares. It's kind of like doesn't make sense, and I'm still trying to figure out why these things like popped off in the first place. I think the dev is like a rainbow guy, and I don't know. I guess it's something with pseudo swap, and I was like, my friend had Nance, and he was telling me like, oh yeah, a lot of like whale wallets are buying this stuff or minting this stuff, so. I don't know. I kind of like blindly aped into it and just got the rarest one. But hopefully, I'm gonna probably lower it in a little, see if I get any kind of bites. But I just left it at 100 ETH because I'm like, why not? I mean, the thing like 50x or whatever it is. So I'm like, all right, if I get a bid, I get a bid. But if it does sell at 100 ETH, I will put in the rest and I will buy the left facing peng. So that's incentive for any pudgies out there. I will buy the one of one peng if this sells, because why not?
Yeah, you know what we need in here? Personalized spaces. The LedgArt Space account here can have its own emojis. We need something better than these clapping hands and hearts.
I wish, man. I wish. That's one thing I just do not understand with spaces in general is why they like can't add in the feature. You can choose whatever emoji you want to use as your dashboard. Like if nothing else, make it part of the Twitter Blue experience, right? Like with Twitter Blue, and I actually think that you would get a lot more people that would sign up for Blue with that just for the use of the emojis to be able to decide what emojis they want in their cache.
It's kind of crazy that this got worse over the last year. Like, I remember like voice chats on like Xbox Live when I was a kid, like back like when it first came out, like the early 2000s, and I'm just like, that technology. It's like they've somehow like we've reverted back in times in certain aspects of technology, and like we've come really far in other aspects. But I mean, look at the layout of the spaces. I'm like, how can I think they like have meetings and like how can we actively sabotage this company? There, because it really just doesn't make any sense, and I'm trying to figure out the angle, but I don't know.
Yeah, man. I mean, like one thing that I'm really pissed off about right now, as far as my UI of the app, is on the LedgArt account. If I go on the LedgArt account, it still has the spaces displayed at the top of the screen, right? but like on the Kaleo account, it doesn't any longer show the active spaces just anytime I get on the app. So it's not on the top of the feed anymore like what it used to be. I have to go down to the spaces tab, and like I just don't think about doing that very often, right? When I'm on Twitter, like I'll check notifications and I check the home feed. I just don't go to the other buttons very often. And what I think that that's led to, and I've noticed since they implemented that change on my phone, I have noticed a decline immediately as far as viewership or listenership in a lot of my spaces, because I think that it's obviously been rolled out across like a decent number of accounts. Obviously not for everybody, but for a decent number of accounts. I think they just selectively experiment. Twitter does, as far as what they do and what accounts get it, and like some do, some don't. They just decide whether to move forward or not. And anyway, I think that's happened. And I think there are a lot of people that typically would get on, they'd see spaces at the top of the screen. They just click on it and they join, and they're part of that. But now that because they added the extra step to be able to, go find it rather than it just being given it to you, that there aren't as many people as involved as there used to be, because it wasn't necessarily a market shift that I noticed that with. I mean, it was purely the UI shift as far as, what was presented on the screen, that I noticed, like, man, okay, there are less people that all of a sudden now are showing up regularly to these because of, I really think it was a UI shift that they made a mistake.
Yeah, I had some time to think about it when you were talking about it, and I think they have a blind person working in the UI as the head of their UI department. I think that might be it.
The I think that's one of the biggest things, right? Like, I remember when when Facebook was a thing. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody that still uses it. But I don't like it, and they would change things. Sometimes it'll be good, sometimes it's just like, let's try this out and push it out there, see if they like it. Like, what? As crazy as it can be, going through phases and testing, I think colors and the UI can destroy an app faster than people think about. Underestimate what it is. Especially, I mean, if you build any websites or anything like that, or you navigate the web. Some websites are just, you need to use them, but it's just like, why? Like, who, why, and you don't get to understand. So I feel like Twitter changes really slow, but like you guys said, some of the changes they do, they fuck up, and to fix it, they also take a bunch
No,
of
dude,
time.
you know what it really is at the end of the day? Like, these guys have jobs and they need to like justify their jobs by switching stuff around when they got it right the first time. That's like I think the only thing that makes sense. Like, when you really like break it down. It's like you like have the Mona Lisa, and then no, we're gonna just keep drawing over this, and then they put like a mustache on it, and they like a Takashi 6ix9ine tattoo on the face, and they're like, you know what, this is perfect, and then like they slowly like revert it back to the way it was over like a decade. Like, that's like UI, or like how corporations work. If everything was perfect, like, how are they going to make money? Like, they're like, no, 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 no. Oh, damn, you did it too good this time. You got to mess that up, and then like they slowly just build it back up. That's really the only thing that makes sense.
Arguably, that's what, made Apple become so dominant, was the UIs with the iPhone. How easy, how simple the iPhone was for pretty much any user to use after a brief tutorial on it. Arguably, I'm not project analysis or head of anything for any Web 2 company. But yeah, I'd say arguably, I mean, when they've done the most, when they really kickstarted their sales and branched off into iPhones and iPods, just the ease of use of those would, I'd say, arguably be one of the main reasons why they hold such a prominent spot right now.
I'm an Apple user. I did use a lot of Android before. I like Windows creating anything. So much access. But I think you're right. Obviously, lately some of the updates the last few years are just like, well, something changed. Somebody in there pushing some buttons and things are breaking. But the UI, the whole experience for Apple, I think that's what killed it. When I was 17, I managed a cell phone store, and we sold, all kinds of phones. And the biggest frustration for the the people switching into the newer phones and stuff like that, um, it was like they had, they made the switch, they got the Android or whatever it was back then, and they learned how to use it. But the next Android of the same brand was completely different. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Now I had to spend extra time there teaching them how to use it, and people underestimated, you know, what it's like for somebody to get familiar with a product and get comfortable with it, make it part of your everyday. You don't have to relearn something every time. Once you know how to drive a car, that's it. Anybody that comes and then switches the brakes to the right side, good luck. So that's exactly what Apple did. As for Twitter, with everything, I got a question for you guys. What's going on with Elon? Is that still going on in court?
No, that was a ruse so he can dump $8 billion of Tesla stock and then blame Twitter. It was actually kind of ingenious. It's like the bait and switch. No, I'm not a bad guy. They just had bots. This company sucks. Like that's
Oh,
all it did.
dude, every single one of his sells have been genius. Like the Twitter poll, should I sell or should I not? And like people voted yes. Like, can you blame the guy for going with popular opinion at that point? Like, it's not a Charlie Lee situation. I mean, it kind of was, but it wasn't really if you think about it, because he gave the decision to the public, and the public made their decision. And you ask the question though, like a man that rich, how much of that was bots? It was potentially manipulated to make sure that he won that poll. But still, like, the poll was won.
Dude, you know how many like Tesla fanboys there are? Like it's like that's definitely, I'm sure there's a lot of like real engagement. People like stan Elon like a little bit too much. I don't know, in my opinion. And that's speaking from a guy who has a Tesla, and I sold the Pico top because the used car market, like I saw, basically I sold my Tesla last week because I saw like two soccer moms at a Trader Joe's, and I'm like, this shit ain't cool anymore, so I'm gonna get a Porsche. But anyway, yeah, like there's definitely a lot of Tesla stands out there.
Oh yeah,
So
dude. So here, going back to the Moonbirds thing, here's a tweet from a buddy that I just read. Palmer tweeted like, FYI, shortly after the Moonbird CCO announcement, I actually lost an 8-figure licensing deal that I've been working on for a while. I understand the decision, but the approach by the team could have been much better, upward and onwards. See you all at Parliament later today. Whether it was 8 figures, how much of that included the Moonbirds or not, like whatever it was, point being with that, I'm not going to call bullshit that there was some type of business decision that was called off by the way the team handled whatever they did there. So again, I think there's going to be some backlash they face going forward with that. And like, personally, I don't see it as, like, again, if you sell your product as one thing and switch it to something else without consent, like, not the right thing to do. But just thought I'd throw that out there as an example of somebody that actually owns a Moonbird and their opinion on the take.
Well, as becoming a new Moonbird holder, I would like to give my opinion now. I really love my Moonbird 2950. I'm thinking of building a brand out of it.
Bro, I say go for it. It's a
That's
pretty sick
unfortunate.
Moonbird, honestly.
What happened to him? That sucks.
Doesn't he look like he kind of looks like a rooster bird as well? At least to me,
He
he does.
does. He does. But all right, ladies and gents, I do have to wrap up the space today. Unfortunately, it's been a good conversation. We've been going for a couple hours now, and got a few other things going on today, this evening, that I've got to get ready for. But appreciate again everybody coming. I always enjoy these. My favorite space of the week. Because the vibes here are just right, man. It's just fun being able to hang out with you guys. The Wonky Stonks crew is real. We're here. We're gonna be here. We're gonna stay. We'll talk about everything in the market: the good, the bad, the ugly. And we'll just continue to survive and thrive as the market goes up, down, sideways, whatever it does. We'll be here. So, appreciate again everybody coming up here, and hope you guys enjoy your weekends.
Peace. Yeah, have a great weekend, everyone. Resilience is key.
Peace, guys.
Yes, sir. All right, take it easy.